Angel-6942 calling in. Angel-6942 calling in. Angel-6942 calling in. The date in human years is Friday, the 30th of July 2021. And yesterday, the human host actually went back to work for the first time in 10 days, as he's been self-isolating after he was pinged by his NHS COVID app. Now, he was a bit worried about going back to work because since he was stuck at home, the blackouts have become worse and worse and worse. And he was worried that like halfway through a shift or even before a shift, he would black out and lose his memory and then really lose his job, which we can't afford. Well, he can't afford, we can't afford, because where else am I going to stay? But as it turned out, nothing happened. It was fine. No blackouts whatsoever all day. And today had a shift, and then again nothing happened. Except there was something strange that appeared on his kitchen table this morning that wasn't there yesterday. I'm bored. I'll show you guys. It's this, and it looks like a very expensive box, and it's like expensive looking, and I think it's alcohol, but the human host doesn't drink, and it looks much too expensive for him to afford, and he doesn't remember buying it, and I don't remember him buying it, so I don't know how it got there, and it's a bit disconcerting, because does it mean that somebody's got the key to the human host's home and just put it there? Is it like a stalker? Anyway, now in many ways the host has been grateful for the blackouts, because to be honest, being stuck at home for 10 days is very, very boring, especially when there's not much on the television apart from Olympic sports. Now, I should explain, the Olympic sports, or the Olympic Games as the humans call it, started many, 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 many years ago in ancient Greece, in a place called Olympia. Now, it seemed to have moved Olympia away from Greece to the UK in a place near Earl's Court in Kensington, though I don't know why they moved it there. Now, the Olympic Games happened regularly, I think every 5 years in ancient Greece, and the competitors were free men. They were the only people allowed to compete, and I think free men were men that were not slaves. And they competed absolutely naked, apparently, because they showed naked men on these flower pots, them running about with their bits hanging out. But after many years, the actual popularity of the Olympic Games died out, presumably due to chafing and the cold and sand being everywhere. So there's actually not many records of the original Olympic Games, though I do think the human host has some DVD films of the original Olympic Games, because there seem to be a lot of men wearing sort of Roman garb, and they appear to be running about naked, doing things like leapfrog and squats and press-ups and things like that. Now, the Olympic Games now only started in 1896, and it happens in the summer every 4 years, and they've put a Winter Olympic Games every 2 years after the Summer Games, and everybody, men and women, and even differently abled people, are allowed to take part, although they're all now fully clothed, apart from the swimmers and the divers, and maybe the weightlifters, but they have their important bits covered. Now, this year's Olympic Games should have happened last year, but due to the COVID, it was postponed to this year. And it's happening in Japan. Now, the problem is that Japan is very high in the COVID virus, and not many people have been inoculated or given the vaccine yet. So a lot of the Japanese citizens complained and said, just postpone it for another year, because they're worried about people getting ill and the health service being overwhelmed. But they weren't listened to. And the government and the Olympic Committee, I think they're called, pushed it through, and it's happening anyway. It's a bit like the UEFA people, spelled MAFIA. So it's happening, but the thing is that to help stop the spread of the virus is only being televised, and it's not being shown live, so people cannot go and see the sports live. So there's lots of empty stadiums. I mean, last Friday they had a big ceremony to celebrate the opening of the Olympic Games, which the human host didn't watch, and it was done to an empty stadium, but it was televised. And even the competition happens in empty stadiums with nobody watching apart from on TV. And I think there's a lot of pressure on the Olympic athletes, because, you know, everybody wants them to win and they want to win. And the pressure gets so much that it affects them. I mean, there was this lady gymnastelle, I think they're just called gymnasts now. Anyway, a gymnast called Rebecca.
She was called Simone, you idiot.
And she had won about 30 Olympic medals in the past, but she pulled out of the team competition because she was worried about her mental health affecting her performance and the rest of the team's performance. And she says she was under a lot of pressure from herself and from comments on social media. And she also said that the fact that she was competing in an empty stadium where no one watches also didn't help. And I think what she means is that when people are there, the fact that they're there and they're cheering and they're clapping and they're supporting her helps with her mental health and makes her feel more supported and uplifted, and so she can perform better. So in many ways, I think somebody should tell those humans, the ones that watch football, that scream and shout at the football teams and the referees on the TV as they're watching it, that there's no point. Nobody can hear you. Now, in the UK, a lot of people celebrated this week because a television programme called The X Factor has been cancelled after many, many years on television. I think for the human host, it felt like it was run as long as the Olympic Games. A long, long time. Yeah. And the X Factor is a singing competition where a lot of humans volunteer to have public auditions, and if they don't get through, they're usually taken advantage of and humiliated, and if they do get through, they're just taken advantage of. And it spawned many, many similar types of programs, like Insert Country Name Has Talent and The Voice. And it's a bit like in the old days where they used to put their prisoners in those stocks and then torture them and throw rotten fruit at them to punish them. Well, it's a bit like that, except in this one it's much more screaming and screeching. Now, in Canada, there was a landmark legal case, and 226 people got together and put a legal case against a Dr. Barwin and won. And they got about 13 million Canadian dollars. Now, Dr. Barwin was a doctor that helped humans that couldn't have children have children. And apparently he promised that he would use the sperms of the father to help the mothers get pregnant. And I think he put it in their eggs or did something. I'm not quite sure. But it turns out that he wasn't using the father's sperm. He was using his own sperm or sperm of random strangers. Though I wonder how he got that sperm. Anyway, and I presume that, Dr. Barwin didn't have much space in his fridge because, he had to put his sandwiches in there, and then you have that stuff as well. It's probably not healthy. Maybe you should have got a bigger fridge or bought takeaways for lunch. Anyway, now, this only came to light when a lady called Rebecca, whose parents went to Dr. Barwin, found out that she had developed a disease that none of her family had, and she couldn't get it from them. And it turned out that Dr. Barwin was actually her father. So I suppose Rebecca's father sort of now knows how it felt for St. Joseph to find out when he was told by Mary firsthand. Anyway, and now, in Norway, there was something exciting that happened this week as well. There was big lights in the sky and big rumbles and bangs and people sort of in Norway said that there was a fireball that sort of streaked over their head and crashed into a forest. And it looks like a meteor landed. Now, a lot of Norwegian scientists are searching in that forest for the meteor, which is really exciting. I wonder, is St. Joan still smoking? Because if she is, you need to tell her to use an ashtray and stop flicking her ashes into space. Anyway, I'll get back to you next week.